everyone. Today we are doing lesson 68, Love Holds No Grievances, and chapter 7, The Gifts of the Kingdom, section 6, From Vigilance to Peace. Thank you for joining us today. Let's begin. Chapter 7, The Gifts of the Kingdom, section 6, From Vigilance to Peace. Although you can love the sonship only as one, you can perceive it as fragmented. It is impossible, however, to see something in part of it that you will not attribute to all of it. That is why attack is never discreet, and why it must be relinquished entirely. If it is not relinquished entirely, it is not relinquished at all. Fear and love make or create, depending on whether the ego or the Holy Spirit begets or inspires them. But they will return to the mind of the thinker, and they will affect his total perception. That includes his concept of God, of his creations, and of his own. He will not appreciate any of them if he regards them fearfully. He will appreciate all of them if he regards them with love. So what this is talking about, folks, is recognizing that how you see one being, in truth, is how you see them all. So when you are looking out there and you are judging your brother in any way, you are judging all of your brothers in that same way. And in that same way, you are in truth judging yourself. So if you choose to judge, you are living in fear, not love in those moments. And if you choose to see with Holy Spirit and not your ego, you will choose to be letting go of those judgments and beliefs that you are holding forth as being true. You will see them in your brothers, that they are sinless, that they are perfect as they are, that you will no longer want to judge them for anything. And you will see in yourself that you are pure, you are innocent, and you will no longer judge yourself in any way. It's choosing who you want to think and believe with, see the world with. Your ego mind, the thoughts, beliefs, and judgments that you were taught to believe, or Holy Spirit, his love and acceptance of all that is, his understanding that you are perfect exactly as you are. Nothing has ever gone wrong. Alex?
The mind that accepts attack cannot love. That is because it believes it can destroy love and therefore does not understand what love is. If it does not understand what love is, it cannot perceive itself as loving. This loses the awareness of being, induces a feeling of unreality, and results in utter confusion. Your thinking has done this because of its power, but your thinking can also save you from this because its power is not of your making. Your ability to direct your thinking as you choose is part of its power. If you do not believe you can do this, you have denied the power of your thought and thus rendered it powerless in your belief.
So what this is talking about, folks, is it is our choices to believe as we do that has us perceiving as we do. And it's the choices we make to believe as we are that causes us to believe that we can be attacked or that we can attack another. And if we're attacking, we're not loving in those moments. We're judging. We've been taught from day one to accept blindly and to follow blindly the dictates of our parents and anyone else around us that says they have authority over us to do so. Whether that was the neighbor next door, the policeman on the corner, the teacher at school, someone always had authority over us. Then it went to our boss at work, and then the government. Always somebody having authority over us, dictating what we're allowed to do and what we're not allowed to do. And our minds have been taught to blindly accept and follow these dictates without question. And anyone that questions it we are taught to attack them, to shut them down, to stop them, because they will immediately impinge on everything that we are believing to be true about us, the world around us, and our brothers within it. That kind of stuff causes such terror and confusion within that our egos scream to defend and protect, which causes us to lash out and attack, thinking we're protecting ourselves. Our ability to choose what we want to believe in to be true. We have been taught all of our lives that we don't have a choice in things like this. And that simply isn't true. We have a choice in everything we want to think, see, say, and do. Everything we want to believe in to be true. And it's being willing to look at this and recognize that our power lies in the fact that we can choose what we want. That's why we have free will. Every time we hand away our free will, that's how we make ourselves powerless. When we ask for somebody else to come in and judge us, when we ask for someone else's opinion and judgments as to what we should do and how we should do it and why we should do it that way, we are handing away our power to choose for ourselves what resonates in our heart. But that is what we've been taught to do all of our lives, everyone, without exception. All children are raised to think and believe and do this way. Not just here in your little hometown, but worldwide. Everywhere. Let's continue. 3. The ingeniousness of the ego to preserve itself is enormous, but it stems from the very power of the mind the ego denies. This means that the ego attacks what is preserving it, which must result in extreme anxiety. That is why the ego never recognizes what it is doing. It is perfectly logical, but clearly insane. The ego draws upon the one source that is totally inimical to its existence for its existence. Can you do me a favor, please? Cutting in here, folks. Can you look up that word inimical?
Mm-hmm.
And find out what it means? Don't understand it. It's not clicking in my head. Excuse us while we figure this one out.
Inimical, tending to obstruct or harm, unfriendly or hostile.
One more time.
Tending to obstruct or harm, unfriendly or hostile. An unfriendly act of aggression. An inimical critic.
Okay. So let's go back to the beginning of that sentence 4. It is perfectly logical but clearly insane. The ego draws upon the one source that is totally inimical to its existence for its existence. Fearful of perceiving the power of this source, it is forced to depreciate it. This threatens its own existence, a state which it finds intolerable. Interjecting. So what that's talking about there, folks, and what I'm getting an understanding of is all the judgments and recriminations of that our minds give us, that we're stupid, we're idiots, that we're not good enough. Those are the things that it looks for to give to us, those harsh judgments.
Yeah, that's my understanding too, that the one source that is inimical to its existence is its very judgment and hostility to everyone and everything, which is its own hostility to itself, because as within, so without.
Absolutely. So, and it forces itself to self-depreciation. Oh, you know, I'm really not that good. Oh, thank you, but I'm not that smart. I'm not, those kinds of things where we start depreciating ourselves. Sorry, I'm not good enough. I can't do things as well as I'd like to. Always putting ourselves down. God, I look so ugly today. Those kinds of things. That's the inimical use that the ego puts to the judgments that it holds. Let's continue on. I'm going to step back to the beginning of sentence 7 there. This threatens its own existence, a state which it finds intolerable. Remaining logical but still insane, the ego resolves this completely insane dilemma in a completely insane way. It does not perceive its existence as threatened by projecting the threat onto you and perceiving your being as non-existent. This ensures its continuance if you side with it by guaranteeing that you will not know your own safety. So what I'm getting that particular portion to mean, folks, is when we sit there judging our brothers, casting our judgments out on our brothers, essentially trying to make them feel less than we are. It is our ego's way of making them feel like they're non-existent and we're the powerful ones. And it's that twisted belief that in doing so, we gain our own safety. We build our own power. It's insane. Thinking that by tearing down another, we would build up our own power. But that is what our ego thought system, the way we've been taught to think and believe, would have us do. Alex?
I'm looking up a word here in the second sentence. Antecedents, it looks like. Antecedent, a thing or event that existed before or logically precedes another.
Wait.
So let's get to the sentence.
Wait.
The ego cannot afford to know anything. Knowledge is total, and the ego does not believe in totality. This unbelief is its origin, and while the ego does not love you, it is faithful to its own antecedents. Again, that is a thing or event that existed before or logically precedes another. A person's ancestors or family and social background.
So it's things that have been passed down from generation to generation. Thoughts, beliefs, processes, procedures, a certain way of cooking a certain dish, how to measure it out. All those different things are things that our antecedents would have taught us. Things that we blindly believe to be the absolute truth, the only way it can be done, things of that nature.
So I'm going to read that sentence again. This unbelief is its own origin, and while the ego does not love you, it is faithful to its own antecedents, begetting as it was begotten. Mind always reproduces as it was produced. Produced by fear, the ego reproduces fear. This is its allegiance, and this allegiance makes it treacherous to love because you are love. Love is your power, which the ego must deny. It must also deny everything this power gives you, because it gives you everything. No one who has everything wants the ego. Its own maker, then, does not want it. Rejection is therefore the only decision the ego could possibly encounter, if the mind that made it knew itself. And if it recognized any part of the sonship, it would know itself.
Absolutely. So basically, the way we are taught is to reject everyone and everything outside of what we have been taught to think and believe and do.
Yes.
Anything that is not in alignment with whatever we have been taught is immediately to be rejected without question. And that's, part of how we have been trained. And I keep talking about everything that we think and believe to be true has been taught to us by someone else as it was taught to them and the ones before them and the ones before them. It's a generational thing to blindly follow and believe the dictates of our parents, just as they did with their parents before them and their parents before them. It is a taught, learned process, and it can be unlearned. And it's recognizing that blind following, not questioning it, is what is causing the pain and suffering that we go through. It is that fear that we were taught to believe in to be true that has been tripping us up again and again and again. Earlier today I had shared on Facebook that the moment humanity stopped questioning what was being said to them was the moment humanity failed itself. With the gift of free will, the moment we stopped questioning was the moment we handed away our free will. That, folks, is where we need to recognize we always have a choice. We can't truly hand away our free will. It's always there for us to take up whenever we want. But we can think we are by handing responsibility to somebody else, because we don't want to be responsible for a choice that we have to make in a moment. When we stop judging and following those egoic beliefs that have been taught to us, and we start accepting, the love pours from us. We're no longer caught up in the same sprinting run toward that cliff's edge over that abyss that our brothers are running toward blindly. We've stopped running. We're now standing still, paying attention, observing, looking left, looking right at everything that's going on around us, watching our brothers, one after the other, run headlong, leaping over that edge into that abyss. Not once stopping to question what it is they're doing, why they're blindly following the beings in front of them. Not understanding how they got to where they're at. It's this type of stuff that we're to look at and to recognize that's where the ego takes us. We essentially become sheep, lemmings, following the one before us right over the cliff. Let's continue on. 5. The ego therefore opposes all appreciation, all recognition, all sane perception, and all knowledge. It perceives their threat as total because it senses that all commitments the mind makes are total. Forced, therefore, to detach itself from you, it is willing to attach itself to anything else. But there is nothing else. The mind can, however, make up illusions, and if it does so, it will believe in them because that is how it made them. Everything we focus on, we manifest, folks. Anything that we choose to believe in and to focus our thoughts and our beliefs on it, we manifest it in front of us. So the more we dive into that fear and that angst and that anger and that belief that somebody is wronging us or wronging our brother, we are diving into that abyss of darkness. And we don't even realize we're doing it, and it's all an illusion. Alex?
The Holy Spirit undoes illusions without attacking them, because he cannot perceive them at all. They, therefore, do not exist for him. He resolves the apparent conflict they engender by perceiving conflict as meaningless. I have said before that the Holy Spirit perceives the conflict exactly as it is, and it is meaningless. The Holy Spirit does not want you to understand conflict. He wants you to realize that because conflict is meaningless, it is not understandable. As I have already said, understanding brings appreciation, and appreciation brings love. Nothing else can be understood, because nothing else is real, and therefore nothing else has meaning.
Yeah. So, in everything, the Holy Spirit pulls back the curtain so you can see the truth of what it is you're doing in the moment. And what you find conflict in what a brother says, a brother does, what you've said, what you've done, anytime those things come up and you turn to Holy Spirit, he will pull back that curtain and show you the truth of the illusion that you're believing in. And he will show you how meaningless it really is when you choose to actually look at it. That it was something that was made up and it had no meaning other than to get you to believe something that wasn't true. Continuing on. 7. If you will keep in mind what the Holy Spirit offers you, you cannot be vigilant for anything but God and his kingdom. The only reason you may find this hard to accept is because you may still think there is something else. Belief does not require vigilance unless it is conflicted. If it is, there are conflicting components within it that have led to a state of war, and vigilance has therefore become essential. Vigilance has no place in peace. It is necessary against beliefs that are not true and would never have been called upon by the Holy Spirit if you had not believed the untrue. When you believe something, you have made it true for you. When you believe what God does not know, your thought seems to contradict his, and this makes it appear as if you are attacking him. So, the images I am getting with this, folks, and the understanding is that as I've been working my processes and on this journey and learning what are the key factors happening behind everything that's going on within my brothers, I'm getting this understanding that our beliefs are what we are holding forth as defining everything. Ourselves, our brothers in this world. Those beliefs are the judgments that we are holding forth as being true. And each and every one of those have us conforming to someone else's belief and dictate that this is what this is supposed to be, no matter what. And as we start looking at these things that we've been taught, the more we look at them and actively question them, the more we will find ourselves catching ourselves in the moment, looking without being prompted to because of the pain and suffering, because we will no longer be reacting when things are going on. We will immediately stop and start questioning, what is it that I'm thinking, seeing, believing here, perceiving. And it's when we reach those points that we recognize that there's no vigilance needed anymore to constantly question and look at every single thing that we're thinking, saying, and doing in every precise moment, to hesitate before we speak any longer. Because we are no longer holding those same thoughts and beliefs, we are able to articulate more easily without having the conflicting emotions come in and shut us down and have us responding with anger and vitriol instead. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Excellent. Can you continue?
Yes, paragraph 8. I have repeatedly emphasized that the ego does believe it can attack God and tries to persuade you that you have done this. If the mind cannot attack, the ego proceeds perfectly logically to the belief that you must be a body. By not seeing you as you are, it can see itself as it wants to be. Aware of its weakness, the ego wants your allegiance, but not as you really are. The ego, therefore, wants to engage your mind in its own delusional system, because otherwise the light of your understanding would dispel it. It wants no part of truth, because the ego itself is not true. If truth is total, the untrue cannot exist. Commitment to either must be total. They cannot coexist in your mind without splitting it. If they cannot coexist in peace, and if you want peace, you must give up the idea of conflict entirely for all time. This requires vigilance only as long as you do not recognize what is true. While you believe that two totally contradictory thought systems share truth, your need for vigilance is apparent.
And this goes right back to what I was just speaking of. Once you reach a point on this journey of recognizing the truth, you witness it within yourself, and then you witness it within your brothers. Even as they're doing all the things that they are doing and living in the moment of chaos that they're living in, you understand the truth of what it is they do in those moments. And you can accept and allow them to believe as they are choosing to believe. Even going so far as to share the truth as you understand it, with acceptance that they may not accept it for themselves. When we reach that point on this journey, vigilance, as it says here, is no longer necessary. Because we are constantly living in and seeking truth and sharing truth in those moments. We're no longer living in the lies of the illusion. You have anything else to add to that?
Well, there was a couple of thoughts that came up when I was reading that paragraph. Just thoughts regarding my belief that I can be a victim, or that God can abandon his son. And those are obviously conflicting thoughts with truth. And so it requires vigilance in my thought system to keep me from kind of going back into that rut of thinking of being a victim or that God could abandon me.
Yeah, on the portion of the journey that you're at right now, it is recognizing that there are these, why is the systemic? That's the word that's coming to mind. There are these systemic things that are connected one into the other. And their core is based out of things that we learned in our childhood. And when we willingly look at them, when they come up in our adult lives and we choose to look at what we're experiencing in the moment, if we follow them back, we will find that they go back to our childhood. It's just something that happened in our childhood. And it's finding those connections. And when we do, we can then recognize as the adult we are the truth of what we did in those moments and let it go. So it no longer continues to repeat itself. So in that respect, what Alex was just sharing there was how he was finding himself still believing and feeling and thinking that he was a victim, which gave him difficulty in accepting that he's not a victim here. And he's had to go back and look at these things that he's been choosing to think and believe and ask for correction to them to see how he is not a victim and how he has a belief in something that's not true instead.
Exactly.
All right. Anything else?
No.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
I love you.
I love you too.
All right. Let's continue on. 9. Your mind is dividing its allegiance between two kingdoms, and you are totally committed to neither. Your identification with the kingdom is totally beyond question except by you, when you are thinking insanely. What you are is not established by your perception, and is not influenced by it at all. Perceived problems in identification at any level are not problems of fact. They are problems of understanding, since their presence implies a belief that what you are is up to you to decide. The ego believes this totally, being fully committed to it. It is not true. The ego, therefore, is totally committed to untruth, perceiving in total contradiction to the Holy Spirit and to the knowledge of God. So, as we start out here, a lot of us have come to this course because we've reached the bottom of our barrel, and the pain and suffering we've been experiencing, it's reached such a crescendoing peak and has become so excruciating that we just couldn't handle it any longer. And we recognized that there had to be a better way. And in those moments when we chose to find a better way, a different way, we chose to go with Holy Spirit. And in those moments, we were standing divided on continuing with the beliefs that we had been holding forth or giving them up for something else. And as we have been walking this journey, we have been recognizing more and more where the road forks for us, what resonates here and what does not, and to go with what resonates and to walk away from what does not. And it's this type of stuff that we are learning to do. And all the perceived problems that we've been taught to think and believe are true, that we need to save up hundreds of thousands of dollars for that rainy day, that belief that we need to buy a house and buy a new car and buy this and buy that. Get that new thing to make us happy. And when we get hit with those bills, to perceive that, oh, if we just made more money, everything would be all right. Those are all perceived problems. And those are things that we have been taught to identify ourselves with, to identify ourselves with our problems. You know, Alex and I have shared about how we've thought about and contemplated things like suicide as we looked at all the problems we were having in our lives. Alex, when he was looking at the financial responsibilities that he has and was unable to meet due to physical injuries and a bad economy and things of that nature. And me, my physical injuries and all of the things that I was believing were problems for me, that I was less than and unworthy because I couldn't do this and I couldn't do that, and I wasn't able to go here or go there and to be this for this person and that for that person any longer. All those things were perceived problems that built up in our minds to create this tidal wave of desperation, anxiety, and depression that had us sinking so low as to think that death could be a possible way out. And these are the things that our egoic beliefs would have us believing in, that is an option here, that if we do this, it will all go away. And it's not necessarily true. We carry it over into whatever other life we go into. Alex?
You can be perceived with meaning only by the Holy Spirit because your being is the knowledge of God. Any belief you accept apart from this will obscure God's voice in you and will therefore obscure God to you. Unless you perceive His creation truly, you cannot know the Creator, since God and His creation are not separate. The oneness of the Creator and the creation is your wholeness, your sanity, and your limitless power. This limitless power is God's gift to you because it is what you are. If you disassociate your mind from it, you are perceiving the most powerful force in the universe as if it were weak, because you do not believe you are a part of it.
In everything, these judgments that we've been taught to hold forth as being true, as defining us, that we are to use as a means of depreciating ourselves, that egoic voice we listen to would have us believing that God is simply punishing us because we are unworthy. And, you know, I held a belief in my life that I was unworthy of everything and that God found me unworthy and was punishing me continuously. And that was my ego voice playing havoc, telling me what a horrible, evil person I was for being touched by somebody else, for being raped and being molested, for not believing blindly that what my family said was the truth, that I was simply unworthy. Every time I tried to deny that, I was stomped down again and again and again, because in my heart I truly did not believe I was worthy. I truly believed, like they were saying to me, that I was not worthy of anything or anyone. And it was those kinds of beliefs that put me further and further from who I truly am and from God. It was those kinds of things that shut the door for me to be at peace, to live in constant fear, anxiety, and depression and disillusion, that everyone was out to get me and to hurt me. When my husband and I first met, when Alex and I first met, I had so much fear of men. It was amazing that I was able to talk to him. And it was that fear that obscured everything about Alex and everyone else around me, about the truth of who they are, and that he didn't want to hurt me, and my brothers don't want to hurt me either. And it was me constantly being in fear, handing away my power to somebody else, accepting their rejection and their judgment of me as being whole, that made me feel powerless and limited. It's only been as I've been accepting who I am that I am finding that I am limitless. I am so fucking powerful. It's unbelievable. I could have never believed how powerful I truly am. How I'm able to create everything I want and need. Alex?
I believe we're on paragraph 11 and it's your turn. Didn't I just read paragraph 10?
Yeah, you're right. I was asking then, are you anything else?
Oh, okay. No.
Okay. All right, 11. Let's continue. Perceived without your part in it, God's creation is seen as weak, and those who see themselves as weakened do attack. The attack must be blind, however, because there is nothing to attack. Therefore, they make up images, perceive them as unworthy, and attack them for their unworthiness. That is all the world of the ego is, nothing. It has no meaning. It does not exist. Do not try to understand it, because if you do, you are believing that it can be understood and is therefore capable of being appreciated and loved. Interjecting. Racism. All this belief in hatred toward our brothers because of the color of their skin, their nationality, where they came from, or their choice of spiritual belief system. Those are what it's talking about there, folks. Those are the things that when we try to understand in the belief in the racism and the fear, there's no way we can appreciate it and love it because we understand too well what it's coming from. Continuing. That would justify its existence, which cannot be justified. You cannot make the meaningless meaningful. This can only be an insane attempt. So every time I'm hearing my brothers lash out at each other in their vitriol, in their hatred, in their fear, I recognize how meaningless it is because it's all lies. It's all fear. There's no truth to it. Continue.
Allowing insanity to enter your mind means that you have not judged sanity as wholly desirable. If you want something else, you will make something else. But because it is something else, it will attack your thought system and divide your allegiance. You cannot create in this divided state, and you must be vigilant against this divided state because only peace can be extended. Your divided mind is blocking the extension of the kingdom, and its extension is your joy. If you do not extend the kingdom, you are not thinking with your Creator and creating as He created.
It's true. When we are in a egoic mind or even a split mind, where we're not truly listening to Holy Spirit or our egos anymore, we're just kind of in between, going chaotic between them. We are allowing the insanity to enter our minds in those moments. And everything that is coming up against us in those moments, we will see as an attack. Everything coming to us. We will see anything, even when our brother says something that is agreeing with us, we will see them as attacking us. How many times have you had a conversation with one person, have them go off the deep end with you, attacking everything you're saying? 10, 15, 20 minutes later, you walk into another friend and you start talking about the situation, and they go and they're actually agreeing with you, and they say something that just has you believing that in that moment that they're attacking you as well. And they're like, wait a minute, I'm agreeing with you here. And they have to step back and re-look at what it is that they are experiencing and recognize that in those moments, they're still reacting off of that other conversation. And in those ways, when we are going through and exchanging this stuff with our brothers, we are finding that we will transfer things from one conversation to another unconsciously. And we will extend that energy, that vitriol unconsciously. And in those moments, that's when we need to be vigilant to recognize that, whoa, we're still reacting. We're reacting to this, and we are now still reacting with somebody else. That's where that vigilance comes in, is to recognize when we're being triggered by something, or when something has triggered us and we've reacted. When we have that split mind, we cannot extend the kingdom any longer. We have slid back into an egoic thought system and belief by our very reactions. And it's looking at that divided mind that we are having. Now, our ego would have us blocking ourselves and looking, believing that we've been wronged in some way. And it's being willing to say, wait a minute, something's wrong here, and looking at it and saying, okay, I'm blocking myself here. What is it that is the truth? And then extending what you are given in those moments as that truth is being handed to you, to your brother, and saying, hey, this is what happened. Now I'm understanding what just happened and, why I responded the way I did. I made a mistake. I wasn't thinking in my right mind in the moment. Things of that nature. All right. Anything else to add to that?
Nope.
All right. Going to continue on to the last paragraph. 13. In this depressing state, the Holy Spirit reminds you gently that you are sad because you are not fulfilling your function as co-creator with God, and are therefore depriving yourself of joy. This is not God's choice, but yours. If your mind could be out of accord with God's, you would be willing without meaning. Yet, because God's will is unchangeable, no conflict of will is possible. This is the Holy Spirit's perfectly consistent teaching. Creation, not separation, is your will because it is God's, and nothing that opposes this means anything at all. Because a perfect accomplishment, the sonship can only accomplish perfectly, extending the joy in which it was created and identifying itself with both its creator and its creations, knowing they are one.
Can you read that sentence again?
Sure. That last sentence?
Yes.
Being a perfect accomplishment, the sonship can only accomplish perfectly, extending the joy in which it was created, and identifying itself with both its creator and its creations, knowing they are one.
Yes. You said a different word instead of being the first time you read that.
What did I say?
I don't know. It wasn't being.
Okay. So, our ego, like I was saying, puts us in a very depressed state. And the Holy Spirit will remind us that we are the one making the choice to think and believe as we are. And we can choose to change our minds and choose again, choosing differently this time. And that if we are in that depressed state, that we are the one that has made this choice and decision to believe as we are. That we are not fulfilling our function as a co-creator with God. That we are depriving ourselves of the joy, the happiness, the laughter. No one else is. It's all a choice. It's how we choose to think, how we choose to believe, and how we choose to say and do. The Holy Spirit's teachings are perfectly consistent. They teach the same thing every time around, that you are the one making this choice to believe as you are. And it is up to you to change your mind. It's up to you to look at and question what you are experiencing and to see the truth of what it is you do to yourself. That was Chapter 7, The Gifts of the Kingdom, Section 5, From Vigilance to Peace. Excuse me, not 5, Section 6, From Vigilance to Peace. Chapter 7, The Gifts of the Kingdom, Section 6, From Vigilance to Peace. All right, let's move on to Lesson 68, Love Holds No Grievances. Alex, can you start us off, please?
You who were created by love like itself can hold no grievances and know yourself. To hold a grievance is to forget who you are. To hold a grievance is to see yourself as a body. To hold a grievance is to let the ego rule your mind and to condemn the body to death. Perhaps you do not yet fully realize just what holding grievances does to your mind. It seems to split you off from your source and make you unlike him. It makes you believe that he is like what you think you have become, for no one can conceive of his creator as unlike himself.
Wow, very true. You know, when I held the beliefs of the things that my family had told me were true about the people that had molested me and raped me, I held a grievance in my heart against those people for ruining me, as I was being taught to believe was true. And that grievance ate at me within. Those beliefs and those judgments as being the absolute truth created a dark, festering hatred and anger within me that created diseases, one on top of another, all of them killing my body. And those grievances had me believing I was my body because I was believing those judgments to be true. Now that, folks, is very, very key to understand, that everything we hold forth to be true is what our body manifests. So if we're holding grievances and judging the sickness and illnesses we experience within us, those are the things that are manifesting from our own choices to think and believe as we do. And many of us have held this belief that God, if we're just like God, then God does this too. God is going to judge us on Judgment Day. He's going to judge us when we stand in front of him as being this or that. And he'll send us to hell or let us go into heaven. This is what we've been taught to think and believe. Doesn't mean it's actually true. But that's what we have perceived God to be as. Our Creator. To be just as judgmental as we have been taught to be. Continuing on. 2. Shut off from yourself, which remains aware of its likeness to its Creator, yourself seems to sleep, while the part of your mind that weaves illusions in its sleep appears to be awake. Can all this arise from holding grievances? Oh, yes. For he who holds grievances denies he was created by love, and his Creator has become fearful to him in his dream of hate. Who can dream of hatred and not fear God? And that goes right to what I was just talking about, folks. You know, as we hold these grievances, we cut ourselves off from God, and we choose to cut ourselves off from our brothers, and we weave these illusions in front of us of all these things that we perceive someone else is doing to us. We see ourselves as a victim, and we point fingers and place blame at anywhere but ourselves for the way we are choosing to think and believe. And in all of it, we constantly want to place ourselves as the victim, because that is what we've been taught to do. Sweetheart?
It is as sure that those who hold grievances will redefine God in their own image, as it is certain that God created them like himself and defined them as part of him. It is as sure that those who hold grievances will suffer guilt, as it is certain that those who forgive will find peace. It is as sure that those who hold grievances will forget who they are, as it is certain that those who forgive will remember.
Yeah, as we let go of our grievances and we recognize who we truly are within by letting go of all those judgments we were holding forth as being true, we recognize that our brothers are doing what we did, and we no longer have a need or a desire to make them feel the pain and suffering of guilt, shame, and fear. We no longer want to extend those things to our brothers. And we find that when we forgive and we recognize that nothing has gone wrong, nobody's done anything wrong, we find true peace within ourselves, because we are not holding any grievances against anyone any longer. Not holding any belief that we've been victimized in any way. Continuing. Would you not be willing to relinquish your grievances if you believed all this were so? Perhaps you do not think you can let your grievances go. That, however, is simply a matter of motivation. Today, we will try to find out how you would feel without them. If you succeed even by ever so little, there will never be a problem in motivation ever again. And this is true, folks. When you see the results of the slightest bit of effort on your part or willingness on your part to look at and let go, and you feel the release of that weight off of you, that pressure to conform in some way to somebody else's belief system, you will never have to worry about being motivated after that, because you will seek that feeling of release again and again and again and again and again until you no longer experience that pressure of pain and suffering any longer. Continue, please.
Begin today's extended practice period by searching your mind for those against whom you hold what you regard as major grievances. Some of these will be quite easy to find. Then think of the seemingly minor grievances you hold against those you like and even think you love. it will quickly become apparent that there is no one against whom you do not cherish grievances of some sort. This has left you alone in all the universe in your perception of yourself.
Exactly. The way the egoic thought system has us think and believe, it has us cutting ourselves off from everyone and everything around us, that no one understands us because everyone is dictating that we are the problem. We are the one that is wrong constantly, and that we have no right to feel like we should not be treated that way. And it is that kind of stuff that becomes quickly apparent once we start looking at this stuff and seeing the truth of it. And when we look at everything that we have with everyone around us, we will find that there are little things here and there that gives us a grievance. Whether it's a pet peeve of your kids coming in and just tossing their backpack on the floor, not picking up all their stuff, tossing their coats on the chairs and the couches and the tables, and not picking up after themselves. If that is your pet peeve and it just pisses you off to no end, and you keep holding this grievance and want to just scream at the top of your lungs, these are the things to look at. Well, why do I feel this way? And once you do, you'll find that you'll find peace within from it. And an answer to how to deal with it too. Takes a little bit, but it's recognizing that they have to be made aware that they are creating more of a job for you. And that's when I started teaching my son to do chores. And when he had to start doing all the things I was constantly doing, he stopped doing the stuff he was doing, recognizing it was easier just to put it where it belongs and not leave it lying around. All right, continuing on to number 6. Determined now to see all these people as friends, say to them all, thinking of each one in turn as you do so, I would see you as my friend, that I may remember you are part of me and come to know myself. Spend the remainder of the practice period trying to think of yourself as completely at peace with everyone and everything, safe in a world that protects you and loves you, and that you love in return. Try to feel safety surrounding you, hovering over you, and holding you up. Try to believe, however briefly, that nothing can harm you in any way. At the end of the practice period, tell yourself, love holds no grievances. When I let all my grievances go, I will know I am perfectly safe. As you look at these things that you've been holding forth and can release them, it's recognizing that everything that you have done yourself, all these things that you have judged and done yourself, your brothers are doing as well. It's seeing how your brother and you are no different. You think the same, you do the same. You were taught the same. This is what we are being brought to understand and recognize. We are no different from one another. We are all taught the exact same thing. And that theme is to give away our free will to someone else and to blindly follow and believe the dictates of those who say they have authority over us. And this is to help us understand that when we are looking at our brothers and seeing them in ourselves and ourselves in them, as we repeat that line, I would see you as my friend, that I may remember you are part of me and come to know myself. That's seeing yourself within them in all the actions and things that they say and do, to recognize how you yourself have done that too. Recognizing they're not your enemy. They do as you have done. They are reflecting to you everything you have done. Alex?
The short practice periods should include a quick application of today's idea in this form whenever any thought of grievance arises against anyone, physically present or not. Love holds no grievances. Let me not betray myself. In addition, repeat the idea several times an hour in this form. Love holds no grievances. I would wake to myself by laying all of my grievances aside and wakening in Him.
Absolutely. And what that's speaking of right there, folks, is laying all of your grievances at Holy Spirit's feet, handing them all over to Him, and wakening yourself in Him with His thinking, His sight, asking Him for the corrections to those grievances, and choosing to hear with His ears, see with His eyes. All right. That was Lesson 68, Love Holds No Grievances, and Chapter 7, The Gift of the Kingdom, Section 6, From Vigilance to Peace. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Sabrina Reyenga.
And I am Alex Reyenga.
Please do the work, folks. We cannot stress this enough to you. It's only when you do the work, when you choose to look within at everything you've experienced and question it, why you chose to believe as you did in those moments, that true peace can be given to you. When you choose to question and ask for the correction. Thank you for joining us today. Hugs, love, light, and blessings to all of you. You are loved. We love you.